Gemma was beginning to complain of recurring headaches. We were back in the doctor's on the Friday. Her symptoms had got a whole lot worse. The headaches were now banging. The fatigue was so bad she could barely get out of bed. Again, the doctor looked her over and said, there's nothing seriously wrong with you. Go back and rest. And she never got out of bed that weekend, apart from 2 struggles to go to the loo. She's back in on the Monday. Again, the doctor didn't pick up on it. And in terms of me being called a campaigner, I became president of Bloodwise earlier this year, and that's been part of my mission, is to raise people's awareness about blood cancer. Because right now, in this country, not enough people know about a cancer that is the 3rd biggest cancer killer in the country, but that's a different area. On the Monday night, we're in the Royal Berks Hospital in Reading, in the A&E department, and in the very early hours of that morning, Gemma is diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. Leukemia that we never ever heard of. She was rushed in an ambulance to Oxford on the Tuesday to get on a machine that then will thin her blood, because the white blood cell explosion had been so rapid and so large. And the treatment began, and for 3 days we were full of hope. We knew it was going to be a long, long journey back to full health again, but we had the firm belief that she would be eventually okay. And the worries about going back to work, the worries about paying the bills, and all those things could wait for another day. But then on a Friday, less than 3 days after she's been diagnosed, Gemma falls unconscious in the early hours of the Friday morning, and by 8:30 that morning, I'm being told by a consultant that my wife has just hours left to live. And by 5:45 on that Friday morning, she has gone. And our worlds, our family, our hopes and our dreams for the future lie in absolute tatters. No idea what life is going to look like anymore. Not a clue how on earth I navigate an 8-year-old boy through the hardest thing, hopefully the hardest thing he will ever face.
Yeah, I know I'm insured. Did I insure Gemma? I couldn't remember. Because your mind's so scrambled. Couldn't find, I'm normally really organised, can't find the right thing anywhere. I can see the money coming out my account every month when I looked online, but I don't know if that's just for me or for both of us. I felt bad doing this. I did. I remember thinking, but she's barely been gone 48 hours and already you're worrying about money.
Would you be able to give us a bit of an insight into some of the things that helped encourage Simon to take out cover, not just for himself, but also for Gemma too?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the classic role of the advisor is to be holistic, and sometimes there is a tendency to, or historical tendency to say, right, the major wage earner should be the person that's covered, and forget the spouse, the wife, the husband, the non-worker, and that's wrong. And this is a blatant example of why. And I think our role is to really go down into quite a difficult subject, but talk about what happens when things go wrong. And the most obvious one with a non-working person is childcare costs. Okay. Now everybody jokes about childcare costs, and everyone will pluck a figure as to how much it will cost. But I think the job there, or the opportunity there, is to then talk about, well, how would you survive if you had to bring someone in to do that? So that was part of the discussion, and there's an element within the advisor of steering somebody. An element of telling anecdotes about what happens if you don't have it. Not necessarily shock tactics, but I think part of it is a disturbance that we have to talk about, and that's difficult. Okay, but it's incredibly important.
And there were a couple of stories that you used. There were two. Were they case studies or anecdotes?
Real life stories, real life anecdotes. One family I knew where they both happened to be females, but where the wife wasn't covered for anything, and it caused financial destitution for that particular family. And another client of ours who had another form of leukemia, not the same weirdly, but again quite fast, causing leukemia, where the wife thankfully did have cover. This particular guy had 2 children, and the childcare costs, and also thinking back to his situation, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but what happened afterwards, and the much maligned phrase maybe, but breathing space.
Anyone who was having any dealings with me in those first few weeks and months, I was a mess, but why wouldn't you be? Traumatic grief, which is what I was going through when someone dies very suddenly and unexpectedly, is different to the grief process where maybe someone's been ill for quite some time and the grieving process actually begins before the person goes. It was such a shock. So you're kind of in a state of shock, you're numb, and your brain is just an absolute mush, basically. And I just don't know why, but I was fixated on, I saw this money turn up in the account, and I'm just paying the mortgage off. I'm just going to pay it off. I don't want to have any more mortgage payments. I want to know that this building's mine. I can sell it and do whatever I want with it, but I don't have to worry about it anymore. But Roy kept saying, when I was texting him or phoning him, he said, just hold off, because he was going to come, and he did come for a meeting around our kitchen table with my accountant Gary as well, to go through kind of what we do next, and in terms of all the other things you have to think about. And Roy just kept saying, just hold off, hold off. I mean, just to encapsulate the kind of madcap thoughts I was having. I remember saying to Gemma's sister Rebecca, who lived with us for a few weeks after Gemma died, I said, right, if Roy doesn't let me pay the mortgage off, I'm just going to I'm going to basically pay some of it off and then buy a Range Rover. And I'm like, I don't need a Range Rover. I've got a nice car as it is. But I don't know why, I was just fixated on it. But I don't know what it was in my head, but that's just a sign looking back on it that I really wasn't thinking straight. And thankfully, I did wait until Roy came round. And his advice was totally right. And that was pay a good chunk of the mortgage off, bring those repayments down so they don't feel so worrying anymore, but hold some money back. Because I remember him saying, you don't know right now what the future is going to look like in terms of work, whether you actually could ever go back to Sky, and without being too callous about Sky, things might have changed in a year or two's time if you go back, and there might not be the job there that you were doing before, and you might end up doing something very different, but it might not afford you the kind of lifestyle that you had before. So just hold it back, have that buffer, because the last thing, and it was totally right, and I'm so glad I've had it, is the last thing you want when you're going through all this is the additional stress and worry of finances. And I've always wanted to be open about this side of things, because you do have that worry that you're kind of putting out a message, well, everything's fine because we had life insurance. Well, no, it's not. No, because what you want most you can't have anymore. But it gives you breathing space. Roy often said, I hope you never have to use this, but if you do, you'll be glad you've got it. You'll be glad you've got it. And I think that puts people off a little bit. It's like, well, I want something in the here and now. This is something that I don't want to ever happen, so I'm not going to go there. I think also, I've tried to encourage friends and family, really, who I know from conversations, listen, so many of my friends and actually family, no wills in place when all this happened. And you've got to sort that out. I know it's a different area. But I think all of us in life struggle with the difficult conversations. We don't like to talk about the fact that we all know we're going to die one day. I'm sorry to break it to people watching this, but we are. We're all mortal, and we're going to go at some point, and I hope everyone watching has a long and a happy life. But sadly for some, as it was the case with Gemma, and is the case for countless others, life is cut short. And it's just important to have those conversations, because when you sit down and talk with someone like Roy about a life insurance policy, of course you're going to have to think for a moment or two about the possibility of that person not being around, or you not being around. And that's a hard place to go. But you see, you only have to go there once. When you sort out the will and you answer the difficult question, would you like to be cremated or buried? It's not a great question to have to answer. You only have to answer it once, because then it's down in writing, it's done. And then you can pretend it doesn't happen anymore and save that all for another day. But I think people are fearful about engaging and talking about something that we, as a society, I think we rather like to push under the carpet and pretend it doesn't happen, or if it does, it happens to other people.
We don't ever want there to be a tangible benefit from having the policy, for having that money coming out every month, because as Roy said, I hope you never, ever have to use it. But of course we ended up having to use it. And in terms of where we are now, in terms of how we've navigated the last 2 years, it was a total game changer.